Hey there, folks. Thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. We are going live to a press conference that Mayor Greenberg is having along with Metro Emergency Services Director Jody Myman. They're giving us an update on the UPS plane crash site and the recovery efforts following that crash that happened here recently by the airport. So this press conference is about to get started. Let's jump in.
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here. Hey, guys. Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. We want to provide an update on two important matters that we're been dealing with. First, we're going to give an update on our preparation for some snow that's expected to come into our city later this evening, and then also give our weekly update on activity that's been happening in and around the UPS plane crash site. First, we're going to start with weather. Beyond it being incredibly cold outside and there being a little bit of precipitation right now, we are preparing to have anywhere the forecast range between 1 and 4 inches are projected to fall overnight in Louisville between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. There also may be another system that follows that on Saturday where the projections currently range between 1 and 3 inches of snow. In preparation for this, our crews actually began work last night at 7:30 last night, worked through the evening, brining streets across the county. We still are brining streets right now. We currently have 19 trucks that are out brining the streets all across Louisville on our snow routes. And this evening, our snow team will transition to salting the roads once the precipitation begins or as appropriate. And of course, if necessary, we will begin plowing as well. We have snow team members that are coming in this evening that will be working round the clock, and we also have snow team members that will be prepared to work this weekend if necessary, depending on what happens with the snowfall. As always, you can track what's going on our snow map at louisvilleky.gov/snow. And also, as snow comes into the system, if you have questions or to report roadways that you think are hazardous, call us at 311 to provide reports. That's incredibly helpful to us and our snow team as they're working. And also, as you see trucks out on the roadway right now this afternoon or through the evening, please give them plenty of space to work. Whether they're plowing, whether they're brining or salting, give them a safe distance and be incredibly slow and careful as you all may be driving around town this evening. I want to thank Wes and Bill and Nate and everyone from our snow team that they're here. Really appreciate what the entire team has been doing. We've been getting quite a bit of precipitation here over the past couple weeks. And finally, if people want to stay up to date on the latest, another reminder to sign up for Lens Alert, 67283. You can text 67283 and sign up for emergency notifications that come directly from the city in the case of crises or severe weather events. We'll take questions after we go through both topics today, but that is the update on the snow. We are definitely prepared for that, and we'll see what comes our way, but we're going to be prepared for either whatever happens. The other topic we want to give an update on today is, we're now more than a month out from the tragic crash of UPS flight number 2976. And since day one, our first responders have been at the site to tackle initially the response and then the remediation and recovery effort at the crash site. It's been an incredibly difficult time for our community, for the families who lost loved ones. But one bright spot since the tragedy is the feedback that we've received and continue to receive on the work of our amazing first responder, cleanup, and remediation teams. I want to read a brief note that I received the other day from one of the contractors, a national contractor who's working on the site, because I think it says a lot about the teams that we should all be proud are working on our behalf here in Louisville. And so I read, quote, "I've been in this industry for more than 30 years, and my counterpart and I have managed some of the most significant incidents in our nation's history, including 9/11, the East Palestine train derailment, the Southern California wildfires, Hurricane Katrina, and the BP response, as well as countless chemical plant disasters, marine casualties, and other events. In all of that experience, I can honestly say I have never worked alongside a more capable, collaborative, and selfless group of professionals than those here in Louisville. It truly sets this city apart and deserves recognition." He goes on to say, "With over 3 decades in this field, I can confidently say this response would not be nearly as effective without this team. In just over a month, we have accomplished more to restore this community than many cities would achieve in 3 months. Simply put, your team is exceptional, and it has been a true privilege to work alongside them, and it has been our honor to serve the Louisville community in this time of need." I think that's very appropriate recognition for the wider range of first responders that have been working and continue to work at the crash site, around the crash site, to get our community back to where it was and to deal with all of the impacts from this tragedy. And today I'm joined by several of those leaders from Emergency Services and MSD to provide some additional updates on the remediation efforts. They acted quickly, including MSD, which got to work right away and prevented 30,000 gallons of oil from getting into the waterways. And they've stayed on the site and worked diligently to remediate the entire area. And I want our community to know that environmental cleanup remains active, and there are strict rules and guidelines being followed, including the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. This includes things like oil, debris, soils, and water that are being transported, getting ready to be transported off-site for their ultimate disposal. And that transportation and the disposal of the oil, of the debris, of the soils, of the water will all be according to these guidelines and environmental regulations. So to provide an update on the work at the site right now, I'd like to first welcome Jody Myman, who also in that long email of which I just read some excerpts, was singled out as one of the great leaders helping our community following the site and so many other things as well. Jody? You can. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And those same sentiments come from the city as far as the contractors that have come in from both locally as well as from around the country to help us out. The collaboration and the transparency has been really good. So just a quick update from the site. I've mentioned, every week since the beginning that we've got 3 phases. Phase 1 has been opened to the general public. Now it's Don Hudson, Grade Lane to Don Hudson and south to the outer loop. Businesses for the most part as usual or as usual as it can be. We've also got phase 2. It's all the other businesses on Grade Lane that's within our secured site. We've got businesses and employees that are coming and going and working throughout that. We've also got the phase 3, which is Melton, Knopp, Able, and Hawkins Avenue. That's back to more towards where the crash scene is, and we're really happy to say that from the beginning, LG&E, one of our great partners, they are way ahead of what was originally predicted on the work that they were going to have to do, and the site for the most part, as far as the streets, have been released back to us. So that we can extend over the next couple of days our what we call Operation Midnight, and that's where we're allowing the businesses that are on those streets to come in. Right now, they can come in from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. And those are the hours that we don't have any or a lot of other contractors on site that are performing the cleanup. And they will, we're going to back those hours up and extend those hours for them. And we'll be in contact with the businesses as well. So out of over 90 businesses right now, they've got over half of those businesses, gas and electric restored to them. If you are a business in the area and you've not been contacted by LG&E, we don't think that's the case, but if by some chance you haven't, we encourage you to call 502-589-1444. That's 502-589-1444 to meet LG&E on site to get your electric and or gas restored to your business. It's very obviously becoming very important with the cold weather that's coming in this weekend to make sure that we don't have any type of frozen pipes. And we're working with the water company to alleviate the potential for those issues as well. Another update is we're coming up on 30 days of the Community Resource Center being opened. Tomorrow will actually be its last physical day on site. The Small Business Association will be in town for a few more days, but it's closing tomorrow. But we will still have resources, and we're communicating with businesses that if they need additional resources, they can go to our website and they'll be able to find information as if they were going to the actual physical site to get that. So we're going to continue assisting them. It's just there's just not going to be a physical site that's open past tomorrow. Like I said, the number of appointments have significantly dropped just over the last week, so we feel like it's time to do that. And just to echo what the mayor said, and I mentioned it just a second ago about the cold weather, and this doesn't just go for businesses, but for homes, make sure you're taking the time now to winterize your houses so that you don't have any frozen pipe issues or any other things. So, you know, dripping water and opening cabinet doors, winterizing your outside faucets and things like that is a big thing to consider over the next couple of days. With that, I'd like to introduce Brian Bingham with Metropolitan Sewer District that's going to give a little bit more of an update with the cleanup.
Thank you, Jody. And I will echo, I've never seen a group of people work together any better than the people out here. And that includes the contracting team, which many of them are local or regional and some are national. And they are all competitors of each other's, and they work together as if there is no difference. So just want to say a few nice words about them. But I want to give you a little more detail about the waste and where it's going, or at least how it's going. So there obviously was a lot of oil related to this incident. There's been a lot of oil recovered, pure oil, and then there's been water recovered with oil in it. So I'll talk through a couple of those processes. The oil that's been recovered, that's pure, that is going to be disposed of off-site, out of state, and I'm going to give you a little bit of detail here. So I want to go through because it's going to be incinerated out of state and will be thermally destroyed to 99.99999%, and then that will be placed in a RCLA Subtitle C landfill. So a very certified landfill, something that's absolutely appropriate and is the industry standard and the industry gold standard. So that transfer of material has started today. There will be 5 trucks a day. We'll take it to train cars for 5 days. So there'll be 5,000 gallons in a tanker. 5 trips a day, 25,000 gallons per train car, 5 train cars. So over 5 days, that will be transferred. That is going to a secure facility, and there's secondary containment in place at that facility. So should something go wrong during the transport, there is a way to make sure that it doesn't get released back into the environment. These are all the best practices for the industry. The impacted soils will be taken to a certified landfill, and that will start probably early next week. There's still some final contractual things being worked out on that. That hasn't been finalized yet, but I think it's down to those last dotting I's and crossing T's. And that should only take 3 or 4 days to transfer all that out. So that should get all the pure oil and the solids and soils off-site related to that. The water that was recovered with oil in it, that is still being treated and processed. So to date, about 600,000 gallons has been treated, processed, and by treated, they separate the oil off, put that in the tanks for disposal. Then they go through and they put it through a process that's been brought in on site, and then that is discharged to the MSD sewers. And all the parameters that have been evaluated so far have come back at non-detect. So this is virtually clear water, but we're taking it through the sewer system just to ensure anything gets an additional level of treatment and that nothing gets out to the community. So we feel very, very comfortable about that. There still is about more than almost 2.5 million gallons of water and oil to be treated. We can treat, the system can treat 100 to 200,000 gallons a day. Just depends on how Each tank's a little bit different. Some of them are more concentrated, some of them are a little less. So it depends on how fast it can go through there. That's all being worked through. There is still one issue that's being worked out, and we don't have the final plan for it yet. That is, we being MSD have a large detention basin in the area, the Melco Basin. That's a 55-acre site. There is water in it. There is an active operation going to skim off all the oil that's in there. Probably 95% of that's been removed. Still removing that on a daily basis, and then we have to work out a plan of how to treat that final water. That will probably be worked out in the next week, maybe two. I believe that's all, and I'll hand it back over to the mayor. Thank you all.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jody. We're happy to take any questions that you have either on our preparations for the snow we're expecting or on cleanup at the UPS plane crash site.
David Williams, Spectrum News. Has the crash site, I was out there earlier today, it's a pretty wide area. Has the crash site itself gotten smaller? And has the work also increased? And could you also compare how things look today to how they look after?
Yeah, so obviously it's been, there's parts that have been cleaned up, and there's, this is it's an operation that is done in segments. So, the contractors on site that's still collecting the pieces of the aircraft, categorizing that so that it can be shipped off to a proper location. But even, when you ask about the size is still the same because there's still remediation that has to take place on the site even after the aircraft is gone. So, the size of the site technically is still the same as it was, but there's a lot that's been done. Like I said, it's a delayering of things that has to take place all the way down to actually skimming some of the contaminants out of the earth and out of the rock that's on site. So, it's completely changed, from obviously the night of the crash because, the company that's removing that aircraft, has moved through and they're, I've mentioned it in the last week, the briefing that, they're getting into the more concentrated areas. So, it's slowing down a little bit. The weather's not cooperating, but they've also brought a lot of extra their crew members in too. So, it doesn't really appear that it's slowed them down because they've been able to adapt to those challenges.
First one is that police barricade near Great Lane Boulevard. When was that pushed back? I mean, now it's really right there by Great Lane.
Yeah, so that was phase one. We moved that back. I'm going to say it was a couple of weeks ago when we were able to open that up to the general public and make it a local access only. So it's been in place there, and the businesses have to provide us names of not only their employees, but any contractors that are coming in or any deliveries that are being made to, and they have to be, accounted for once they enter that site and then escorted to the different facilities or the different locations once they're in that site. It's just, to be honest with you, that's not on our priority list. It's just, we need to keep this site secure because there's still evidence out there. There's still a lot of utility work. You just heard from Brian. There's moving trucks all over the place. There's people that are standing in the road. It's not a tour site right now. It's still an active cleanup operation that's very, very busy every single day.
Given that it is very much an active site, as I said, I was always big. My question is, how come some businesses that seem to be on the periphery of the intense location are not being allowed to go back? For example, Great A, they're right next to the police checkpoint. I think on the outermost edge of that area, they're still closed. So how come businesses like them or others that aren't as close to the actual site itself are not getting open?
So they're, and some of the businesses are not choosing to open even in that operation midnight. But to my knowledge, Grade A's got a location off-site that's opened up that they're working from. So, they were on site, taking a look at some of their locations as well. But if you think about the actual crash site, it went through Grade A. So, there's some limited area that they're not even able to access. But we've given them access to several locations in that area, and they've taken advantage of that.
Joe, do you have an idea of when phase 2 and phase 3 will be open? Is there an update on that?
So phase two, like I said, phase two is open. It's limited to the businesses and employees only. I don't really have a time frame because that's the main thoroughfare for all the work that's being done, Gray Lane. Obviously, that's the next thing that we want to get, we want to get opened up. But I mean, it goes all the way back to, repaving the street. The streets are going to have to be repaved. So all the way down to the cosmetic things like that has to still take place. So, I don't have a time frame, but I will tell you that we're a lot more ahead of schedule than we were originally, discussing as a unified command at the very beginning of this.
For Jody and or Brian, oil is the main contaminant, right? That these, I'm trying to break this down as simple as possible for people to understand. Do you have any idea how much oil contaminated the area, the soil, the water, and how much has already been recovered and moved out?
So there may be a little bit moved out this morning. None has been moved out yet, but it's starting today. There will be 125,000 gallons moved out over the next 5 days. Beyond that, it's going to take separating the oil out of the tanks that are going through the treatment process, and that will dictate, and there is not an estimate yet of how much has been recovered. I can tell you, not from pure science, but from what I've seen, I would say 98% of the oil has been recovered that hit the ground. There are still some pockets. There are still some issues that we're working through, but they're very small pockets. When the question earlier about has the site shrunk or been downsized, the environmental cleanup site has. So if you looked at it originally, the downstream most point was 4.7 miles down, and it was just to the riverside of Nick Rodman Legacy Park, Lamborn Estates. That site, I think there may still be one boom in there, but that site hasn't collected anything in days, so we've deactivated that site. The next site upstream was at New Cut and Outer Loop on Northern Ditch. That one's been deactivated because we stopped getting any product to that location. The next site upstream was National Turnpike in Northern Ditch. That one's been deactivated. So we've controlled everything back to the immediate area of the crash. Actually slightly downstream of there, but all within our perimeter. So it has been greatly reduced. The treatment process is a very high quality process. It removes even, PFAS has come up as a question before. It removes PFAS to 99.9999, so 6 nines, 2 on the left side of the decimal point, percent removal. So this is a very good process. We're monitoring every batch. So it's going through 100,000 gallon batches that we're treating out there. And every one of those is sampled before it's released to make sure that nothing gets out. So no metals, no other chemicals, nothing like that. So this is a very high level of treatment, far higher than I've ever seen done on anything else.
Total number of gallons in the site, how much,
It was reported to us that the number of gallons of oil in the GFL facility was 250,000. But we don't know what actually burned in the fire versus what was released. But we do know we will have an accounting eventually. We just don't know what is in the 140 frac tanks that we have liquids in right now. We haven't been able to classify that yet.
And so, Paul, just take another way to look at that. There are basically 4 things that are being removed from the site. There's the debris from the aircraft, and that, as Jody mentioned, we have a contractor who is cataloging and collecting all the debris and taking that off-site. You then have the soil that was contaminated is also, as you just heard from Brian earlier, that starting today will be transported off-site to rails, and then it will be railed to a location where it can be safely incinerated and disposed of. You then have the oil. And the oil has been taken, and that too is being removed from the site. And then finally, you have the water. And the water on the site is being separated. The oil then is removed. The remaining water is treated once, and then that water is put into the sewer system, and then it gets the traditional treatment again by MSD. So those are sort of the 4 categories of things that have been removed from the site as part of this overall cleanup effort.
And those are the categories that just mentioned, the continuing process until it's all.
That's right. That's right. We will continue to remove debris. You heard from Jody. They're just now getting to, they sort of moved north to south in terms of the debris. So now they're focused on the area where the most intense areas of debris are, but they've brought in more people. And then, as you've heard from Brian, the oil, soil, and water has been going on, and now it's starting to be transported off-site as it relates to the oil and the soil. And that'll be transported to the railroad and then disposed of appropriately from there.
Will the media be allowed on site at any time?
You heard Jody answer that question, but we hear you loud and clear. We will get back to you on that.
How much of the plane is still there? Have you guys been able to clear all that through yet? Or?
So on the plane, I can't give you a percentage, but up until where sort of the southernmost area of the crash site, where the vast majority of the victims were found, really all of the victims other than the 3 crew members that were in the cockpit, that was a different area. But that is the sort of the highest intensity area of debris, and that's where they're working right now.
Are they still physically picking up pieces of the plane?
Yes.
Do you have any idea of how many, maybe this is for you, Jody, how many people made appointments to go, how many appointments did you have at the community resource center?
I don't have that number specifically, but we can get that for you.
All right. Well, we will continue to provide updates as there is information like there was this week. We'll do that on a weekly basis or as needed. And again, to the entire community, please be careful as you're going about across the town tonight and over the weekend. And let's, depending on what weather comes our way, we'll be out there working to keep the road safe. Thank you all very much and have a good, safe day.